In southern Ohio, there's a plant where the United States enriched uranium for decades. On Monday, it got a new job. Nvidia, OpenAI, and SoftBank are putting an AI data center on it. 8 gigawatts, the biggest ever. And Nvidia is backing it with $105 billion. Jensen Huang got ahead of the obvious objection. Is this circular financing? He asked on X. No. OpenAI pays the lease. Which raises a question. If OpenAI is paying the lease, why does Nvidia's name need to be on it at all? This is the fine print from NoFlow. The campus is called Ports Pike. It's the old Portsmouth gaseous diffusion plant in Pike County, spread across private land and federal land. SB Energy, which SoftBank owns, builds it and owns it. OpenAI signs a 20-year lease. Nvidia is the only chip supplier allowed on the site. The first capacity is supposed to come online in 2028. Nvidia did 2 separate things on Monday. It put $1.5 billion of its own money into SB Energy, and it guaranteed up to $105 billion. Both of those are real, and only one of them is money that moved. Nvidia filed an 8K with the SEC describing what it signed, and the description runs about 4 paragraphs. The $105 billion is what the filing calls a residual value guarantee. It's a backstop. Nvidia pays out only if one of 2 things happens. OpenAI goes insolvent and defaults on the lease, or OpenAI simply stops making the payments. The filing calls either one a trigger event. Then Nvidia covers the gap between a guaranteed minimum value and whatever SB Energy can recover by finding a replacement tenant or selling the place. So far, ordinary. Landlords ask for a guarantee from a thin credit tenant every day of the week. It's the sentence about when the guarantee ends that does the work. Nvidia's obligations terminate when OpenAI achieves a satisfactory credit rating. That's Nvidia's own filing, saying out loud what the structure is for. SB Energy has to borrow billions of dollars to put this thing up. Lenders will lend against a 20-year lease. But a lease is only worth as much as the tenant behind it, and they price it off that tenant's credit. OpenAI is private, so it has no public credit rating at all, and the termination clause in Nvidia's own filing tells you what the lenders think that credit is worth today. Nvidia has one of the strongest balance sheets in the world, so Nvidia lends the balance sheet. It's disclosed under item 2.03, creation of a direct financial obligation, or an obligation under an off-balance sheet arrangement. Right now it costs Nvidia nothing. Nvidia owes nothing before 2028 and owes nothing at all unless OpenAI misses a payment. What Nvidia buys with it is 4.25 gigawatts of data center running exclusively on Nvidia hardware. 4.25 gigawatts out of 8. The other 3.75 is an option Nvidia can take, in the filing's words, at its sole discretion. OpenAI is the customer for all 8. So the $105 billion sits behind a little over half the campus. It used to sit behind a lot more. The Journal reported in late July that Nvidia was in talks to guarantee around $250 billion. By the middle of this month, the Journal had it under 120. It got signed on Monday at 105. Shareholders had already voted. On the Monday, the $250 billion story ran, Nvidia closed down about 5%. When the real deal landed at 105, the stock finished the day flat. And there's one more line in the filing worth sitting with. OpenAI has agreed to reimburse and indemnify Nvidia for any and all amounts actually paid by Nvidia to the lessor. Put that next to the trigger. Nvidia pays when OpenAI can't. Then OpenAI pays Nvidia back. The other side. Huang's structural point holds up. The guarantee sits on land, power, and a shell. It's a building and an electrical interconnect. This isn't Nvidia lending OpenAI money to buy Nvidia chips, which is what people usually mean when they say circular financing. And a residual value guarantee only covers a shortfall. If somebody else takes the space, Nvidia's exposure is a fraction of $105 billion. In 2028, somebody else probably would. A finished, energized, grid-connected 4-gigawatt campus, in a market where the binding constraint is power, is not going to be hard to relet. The filing also hands Nvidia a menu of remedies if that day comes. It can assume the lease itself, force a sale, or sit on the whole thing for a year while it decides. And the company negotiated itself down from $250 billion to $105 in about 3 weeks, after the market told it what it thought of the bigger number. Nobody outside these 3 companies has seen the contract. The 8K is Nvidia's summary of it. The agreements themselves get filed as an exhibit to the quarterly report for the quarter that just ended. Nvidia reports that quarter on August 26th. The thing to look for is the guaranteed minimum value schedule. In an ordinary residual value guarantee, that number steps down over time because the asset is worth less every year. If it steps down, Nvidia co-signed a lease. If it holds flat for 20 years, $105 billion is much closer to the real number. That is the fine print.